I remember the first few landlords to kind of fine tune a procedure for feeding their martins and how they promoted it. The first that I remember was a landlord in Indiana, and there was cold weather, and it was going to continue cold, too cold for flying insects, maybe in the low 40s or something like that. And it was going to continue for more than 3 or 4 days, which 4 or 5 days is the cutoff point where adult martins will starve to death with no food. And his martins were sitting huddled out on a perch. It was sunny but cold. And he just said to himself, my martins aren't going to die. And he went off to a pet store or a feed store, and he bought a few hundred mealworms. And he got out his slingshot, and he turned those mealworms into flying insects. He kept shooting mealworms past the martins, not at the martins, but past them. And he could see that they were following these little things flying through the air. And eventually one of the martins sallied out, grabbed a mealworm, went back to the perch. It ate the mealworm. Well, he kept it up, and pretty soon all of his martins were darting out and grabbing the mealworms. He slingshotted up for them, and he saved his martins. He kept feeding him that way until the weather broke. And, you wouldn't feed them all day long. He might feed them 2 or 3 times a day. It kept them alive. And so that was an innovation. We all hated killing whether it was going to kill the adults or kill the babies, but nobody had a way to overcome it until now. And then another landlord, this man was in Illinois. He was very inventive, and he trained his martins to come to a little pan full of insects that he put up on a step ladder near the housing. And he would ring a bell every time he put the insects out there. And they learned to associate the bell with feeding. And so when he had bad weather, they would get fed. He kept feeding them through good weather because he wanted them to remember about it. So when they had lots of babies and were needing more food, he would daily put out some worms, and mealworms, and he also started offering them little bits of scrambled egg, which is pure protein, and eggs turn into birds. So that was a good food choice too. And those 2 stories just kind of spread, and people started trying it in their own backyards. And then one spring, the PMCA, it was late May, and we had a freeze. We had a lot of martins back, and there was no food. We got some mealworms. We got those slingshots out, and we went down to the martin houses and started slingshotting up there. And eventually, they caught on, and they learned how to eat the mealworms. We even put up a special tray feeder that went up and down a pole with a rope, like a flagpole, and we could put mealworms in all of those trays, and we'd load them up. And the martins, they watch each other, and one does something, pretty soon the others are trying it. They were all coming and just scarfing down mealworms, the only food available. And we ran out of mealworms, and it was a weekend. We couldn't get any more shipped to us by FedEx. We couldn't get any at the local pet stores. So we said, well, we'll try the scrambled egg. And we started scrambling eggs in the office microwave and cutting them up into little worm-size shaped pieces. And the martins weren't touching them. They were sitting on the shingle roof, the back of the office roof, because it was a little warmer there. The shingles were dark and absorbed some sunlight. So we started tossing handfuls of the little eggworms up there around the martins. And as one of those little pieces rolled down the roof, maybe it looked alive, like a mealworm, and a martin dived on it and ate it. And pretty soon they were all gorging on scrambled egg. We couldn't scramble them fast enough. One martin saw another martin wearing a yellow leg band and tried to eat the leg band. I was carrying out a big tray full of egg pieces, and a desperate bird just skidded through the eggs on my tray. It was going to get there first and get fed. They knew they were on the verge of starvation, and so they overcame their normal fear of people to get their eggs, and we got them through the bad weekend that way. And it's not an ideal food long term, especially for babies. It will turn their poop very liquid after a few days, but in an emergency, we were mighty glad that we knew to try the eggs. And we also now all keep big bags of mealworms and crickets in our freezers for emergencies.